Right, you're gonna stand and pace around for every single one of your videos now? Dude, I don't know, go do your homework. We've done the Mimic, we've done wet floorbots, we even did Glamrock Bonnie. I think it's about time that we take on the mystery, what is Glamrock Foxy? Or where is he, more accurately? What happened to the log flume? What happened to his themed area? Why does he have a section at Kids Cove? Was he ever even at the Pizzaplex? Slices, put on your aprons, and let's bake ourselves a theory. I guess we'll start by gathering some ingredients, by going over literally every single hint we get about Foxy in the games. And I mean hint, because we don't have a lot to work with, especially in Security Breach proper, where he's really never mentioned once in a duffel bag message, or a loading screen, or a hint, or really anything. But even with a complete lack of being mentioned, there's a lot of Foxy memorabilia and merchandise all over the Pizzaplex. He gets an entire standee of this Captain Foxy movie in Rockstar Row that takes up a significant chunk of it. Not to mention the Captain Foxy posters that are plastered in like every other room. Man, I did not see that rock. This is gonna make running difficult, but I guess I'll manage. Next page. Okay. Today's video is brought to you by Morgan & Morgan for the people. Injured and don't know where to start? With Morgan & Morgan, it's so easy, because Morgan & Morgan has modernized the injury law process, making it so easy to submit case details, sign contracts, and more all from your phone. With Morgan & Morgan, you can submit a claim without ever having to leave the couch. You don't need to sit through stuffy consultations or go to law offices or wait forever. In 8 clicks or less, you can submit a claim to Morgan & Morgan. So if you're ever injured in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. You can submit a claim in 8 clicks or less without ever having to leave the couch. For more information, go to forthepeople.com or dial #law, that's #529 in your cell phone. Thanks again to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's video. Well, deeper still, I guess. Maybe if I find whoever owns these woods, I'll send them a notice. In the main atrium, there's even this admittedly bare bones entire area seemingly devoted to Foxy in front of Kids Cove, where we have a giant Foxy statue, other standees referencing the Captain Foxy movie, and even this hidden alcove in this giant ship right next to him. And he's not just mentioned in the set dressing. One of the most hidden areas in the game, the secret room above the daycare where we get Balloon World and a bunch of lore, it's like a really important room, is hidden behind a Captain Foxy poster. Not just hidden behind it, but you have to seek out the characters on that Captain Foxy poster to get access to it. Security Breach, the base game, literally makes you look for Foxy all over the Pizzaplex, but the actual game never mentions him once. So realistically, we had no leads. This was all we had to speculate with. I even did some decent speculation myself. It was one of my first really big videos on the channel, but admittedly, it was closer to fanfiction than an actual theory. I had previously speculated that Foxy was just never at the Pizzaplex. Instead, Fazbear was building the foundation to bring him to the Pizzaplex and trying to means test his branding in the meanwhile. Essentially, Fazbear was trying to figure out if people actually still cared about Foxy enough to bring him back, and while they did that, they were building something that was like pretty bare bones and easy to take down, but in case people actually really loved Foxy, they could quickly make it this whole grand thing. At the time, I even connected it to real-world business practices that places like Sheetz did. For those who don't know, in Pennsylvania, Sheetz is a gas station, convenience store kind of place, similar to your 7-Elevens, except they're way better. For a while, they had what was called the Soda Cave. It was a walk-in fridge that they held big cases of soda in. No one really knew why except for Sheetz, because they knew about a certain law in Pennsylvania, a law that says that convenience stores or anywhere that sells gasoline cannot also sell alcohol. Pennsylvania is very strict with their alcohol laws. Like, you can only have a certain number of liquor licenses per county. For example, in Lancaster County, there are only 3 available liquor licenses, so there's only ever going to be a maximum of 3 liquor stores in the entirety of Lancaster County. The funny part about that is, John Herr, owner of the Herr's brand chips and lives in the Herr's mansion at Lancaster, bought one of the liquor licenses so that there can only be 2 liquor stores in the county. He has stated he never plans to open a liquor store, he just didn't want 3 in the county. Anyway, rant aside, Sheetz built this soda cave to prepare for the inevitability of that law being repealed. And wouldn't you know it, the moment Pennsylvania repealed the law, thus allowing Sheetz to sell alcohol, within a week, every single soda cave became a beer cave. I essentially thought at the time that Fazbear was doing this with Foxy. They were building this big Kids Cove area, making it vaguely Foxy themed, and if people liked Foxy, they'd put him in full force. But granted, there really was no evidence for this because there was no evidence of Foxy at all. It was more so speculation based on real-world business practices. But now with Ruin, we have so much more evidence to work with. Right after Roxy Salon, we get to a hidden away area that was previously unknown and unseen in the main game, the Foxy log flume. We get to see a few Foxy cutouts as a cowboy, which was weird, but I mean, it's kind of cool. Also, dope steel wool reference. And don't forget, of all things, for whatever reason, the pause menu gives us some of the most lore about this area. Quote, they never did finish the Foxy log ride. Safety concerns. And before you ask what those safety concerns are, the environment does answer it for us. You can sort of see this in game, but if you go out of bounds and turn off the shading, you can very clearly see why the Foxy log flume was never opened. The whole, it wasn't big enough. I mean, there could have been other reasons, but this staff bot makes it pretty clear what one of the main issues was. We have some more visual indicators of some of the issues. I mean, you can see this wannabe Captain America staff bot trying to hold things together. I get the sense that the staff bots just aren't very good construction workers. And we have one more tidbit about the character with this very cute Foxy and Chica standee with what looks to be like a birthday setting. Finally, the only other information we get about Foxy is through the item descriptions. But realistically, the only item description information we get about Foxy is that Cassie really liked going on the log flume. It was never finished though, so I guess she just went down the big drop and then got off because her dad worked there. Do we know what happened to Foxy? I've seen a lot of people suggest that we've actually already seen Foxy in both games for a while, except now, Foxy is Roxy. And I don't personally believe that, but there's a lot of evidence for it, so we should go over it. On the surface, there is a decent argument to be made here. After all, their names are incredibly similar, and they're both based around dog-adjacent animals. Granted, that is all we kind of had to work with off of the base game, but the DLC did add fuel to the fire. After all, the Roxy Salon is right next to this Foxy log flume, leading some to speculate that this desert area was originally intended to be Foxy's, but has been slowly converted to Roxy's over time. But again, that is kind of all the evidence for it. And while I do understand that theory, I see the connection, it's perfectly valid to think that. In my mind, it would make more sense if they were meant to be a duo that worked off of each other. I think the original plan was the Roxy Salon and the Foxy Saloon. If Fazbear was to take Foxy and try to turn him into Roxy, to me that would read like they were trying to erase his existence from ever being here in the first place. Just brush him aside and be like, oh, Foxy was never here. But Fazbear is not doing anything to hide Foxy's presence at the Pizzaplex. He's plastered all over the place. He's got a giant statue in the main atrium. Fazbear wanted Foxy to be here, and in Ruin, I think we see what his implementation was meant to be. I think they were planning on making a matching Foxy Saloon right next to the Roxy Salon, and have those two characters share that space. Why a saloon? Well, first off, it's Western themed, and it seems like they were trying to make Foxy into a sort of pirate cowboy, but think again to the standees we see at the end of the log flume area. They're birthday themed. Sure, cardboard cutouts aren't the be-all end-all, but think about what cardboard cutouts are meant for. They're put in a place as decoration. If you had a decoration specifically for eating cake at a birthday party, it seems like that would be a decoration reserved for a place you eat at. I think it's very possible that this is implying that an eatery was planned to be here as well. That, and if they already wanted the names to be similar with Foxy and Roxy, Saloon and Salon seems very fitting. I think this makes a lot of sense. But then the question still remains, where did Foxy go? Was there some kind of accident with the log flume that was so bad Fazbear decided to just wipe away the entire thing? What was Foxy even doing if the log flume wasn't up and running yet? Well, I do think there's one plausible location for Foxy to have been at before the log flume was implemented, the Daycare. Okay, so bake with me for a second. In the story, hold on. In Somnophobia, it is the third Tales from the Pizzaplex book, we get a lot more information about Sun Moon, and we learn that Sun and Moon were not the original Daycare attendant. Originally, Sun and Moon were just a stage performer in the Daycare theater. Their whole gimmick was what we see in the game. Once the light goes off, Sun turns into their evil moon side. But for whatever reason, at some point, Sun and Moon were transitioned to become the Daycare attendant. Now, they couldn't get rid of that programming, so instead, they just made sure the lights never went off. Weird, I know, but it's Fazbear. Do you see what I'm getting at? If Sun and Moon weren't the original daycare attendant, who was? What about the giant statue right in front of the main entrance to the daycare from the atrium? Foxy. Between the Kids Cove theming, his presence in and outside of the daycare, and even his connection to the secret daycare room, I think there's a decent argument to be made that Foxy was the original daycare attendant. Now, I would have no idea why he isn't anymore, or if there's some kind of incident that happened, and I don't even technically think that's the most likely solution. I just think it's possible. But really, I do think there's one much more likely option right in front of us. Let me tell you what it is. I was going through the item descriptions to try to find any lore for this goddamn fox, and something struck me as somewhat weird. There is some lore attached to this plushie and some of the other merchandise, but look at the item names. AR Glam Bonnie, AR Glam Chica, AR Foxy. And in the designs too, all of the new merchandise of Bonnie uses the Glamrock Bonnie design, even the golden version, but the Foxy versions of the same lines use the original Foxy design. What if there was never a Glamrock Foxy? We know that Bonnie has been gone for a while. If the Tales from the Pizzaplex games are at all similar to the timeline or the same one, regardless of what you believe, Bonnie's been gone for a really long time. Glamrock Bonnie is not mentioned in any of them. At best, in the storyteller, it mentions that an animatronic in Bonnie Bowling was going awry. So maybe that's talking about Bonnie, but even then, it mainly refers to Monty in that story. And yet, even though he's been gone for a seemingly very long amount of time, we still get duffel bag messages about him and his absence, but we get nothing for Foxy. We have canon designs and hints towards Glamrock Bonnie and Security Breach, but we don't have anything for a Glamrock Foxy. We even get to see the remains of the original Glamrock Bonnie in Ruin, but again, nothing even close to that for Foxy, because he wasn't out yet, but maybe they were planning on implementing him soon. One of the more annoying parts about knowing where you are and navigating the Pizzaplex and Security Breach is the massive amount of cover and construction right outside Roxy Raceway and Roxy Salon. We know that there's a sinkhole under the area, and it's under constant repair, but why would all of this be necessary for something that's under the raceway, not the entrance and Roxy Salon? Not to mention, at the actual raceway itself, there's some construction equipment, but it's nowhere near as covered up as the entrance is. I think that's because they were in the process of building the Foxy Saloon. Look around in that area we see in Ruin where we get all the Foxy information. It is filled to the brim with paint cans, spray paint, and other decorations. It seems like they were putting the finishing touches on this area, not taking it down. Sure, you could chalk the paint being in there up to like a retheme for Roxy or something, but the structures are still very much themed around Foxy. And if you've ever done any kind of construction or building, painting is one of the last things you do. If you count putting furniture in, then it's the second to last because furniture comes last. But as far as building a structure or remodeling a structure goes, you end with paint. It's how you end the whole job, which to me implies that this area was almost finished, not recently being taken down. So what am I trying to say here? Let me lay this out straight for you. Here's my theory, not fact, don't get angry at me. Business at the Pizzaplex was going well, but whether out of wanting to try something new, bring back someone old, or hell, maybe they even were trying to brush past the Bonnie incident, and then they did this to do that. I don't know, I have no motive for this. Regardless, for whatever reason, Fazbear wanted to bring back Foxy. It started small. They began by adding merchandise of Foxy in random locations and seeing how people reacted. And seemingly people liked it, so they upped the ante and added that big old standee we see in Rockstar Row. People once again really liked it, so they went all in and started making a giant Foxy themed area right outside of Kids Cove where the majority of the young children would pass by, and all of them seemed to love it. Again and again, the people were telling Fazbear that they liked Foxy and they wanted him back. Not only that, but with all these additions, it became more and more clear that the public was asking where Foxy was. So they wanted to make it a big grand thing. They closed off part of Roxy Raceway and Roxy Salon and began building the Foxy Saloon and Foxy Log Flume. If they wanted to make this big old intense ride, they put it right next to the other adrenaline-seeking ride they had, the go-kart area. Not only did they cover up their construction, but they blocked off the viewing of it from most of the atrium to not spoil the surprise. Of course, construction took a long time and it still was never safe enough to open, but before they could really get some human hands in there and try to solve this problem, I think the all-staff meeting happened, or something similar, where human workers began getting replaced with staff bots, which is why in that area, we do see those signs saying that staff bots should be the one to do this. And although the staff bots are fairly competent as security guards and waiters and things like that, they probably made for lousy construction workers, as we see at the end of that area. Mistakes kept happening and progress nearly completely stopped. And for however long after until security breach, the Foxy area and Foxy himself were never able to be finished. It just remained an unfinished project of the long list of Fazbear mistakes. So what do you think? Admittedly, it's loose at best. But personally, I do think Foxy not being there to begin with is more likely, that was a really loud noise, is more likely than Foxy literally being turned into Roxy. But if you're sick and tired of all this newfangled FNAF where we really don't know what we're talking about yet, I did just make a theory on the very early moments in the timeline, which you can see right here. As always, a huge shout out to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty slices.